Testimony continued today in the most notorious criminal trial in Richland County. Dr. John Boyle is accused of killing his wife Maureen and burying her body.
The 12-year-old son finally took the stand.
Boyle confidently told the jury it was his decision to testify against his father.
I heard a scream. I heard a thud. It was about this loud.
We, the jury, find the defendant guilty.
I decided at an early age that our trauma should not be what defines us. It's what we choose to do with it that does. I'm here to share my unique perspective on true crime, mental health, society, and popular culture, and always with a slight sense of humor. I'm Collier Landry, and welcome to my show. Mover Nation, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on? What's going on is we're trying to get our guest du jour to get logged on. They're having technical difficulties, but hey, it is what it is. What can we say? It has been a day of technical difficulties. Here he is, Chief James Craig. Okay, so as you all know, yesterday a would-be assassin tried to take the life of former President Donald Trump, in Butler, Pennsylvania, in a rally. The would-be assassin took the life of one rally goer who died bravely, saving his family during the rally. 2 others are still in critical condition. This has called into question security issues surrounding the security of our political candidates and in this current election cycle as incendiary rhetoric. And I've talked about this a lot. I don't dive into politics, but as I said in the notes in this episode, this is a human issue and not a political one. So that's why I'm covering it. As you guys know, I cover true crime, but this again is, well, this is a crime that took place in front of millions of people. It also calls into question, again, the human issue of all of this, the incendiary rhetoric that is surrounding this election that is destroying families, friendships, households, work relationships, etc. And maybe we should start to examine these things and maybe tone it down just a little bit. And I think yesterday is almost a canary in the coal mine for what went on. That said, my guest today to discuss all of this is former Detroit Chief of Police, James E. Craig. But before I get into James and what he has to say on this issue, he was a former gubernatorial candidate and a candidate for Senate in the state of Michigan. I want to say welcome to our new channel members, Amika Cream, I believe that's how I'm pronouncing it correct, Jen Thunder, Dr. MLS, Chris Wife, Daffy Dill, Andrew Allen, Jan Bertier, Hound Doggy, Tiffany Roberts, Illegally Red, Tori, and Jen. Also, because of the nature of this particular discussion, our moderators are combing through the comments. And if you see a comment go away that you may have made, they may have found it incendiary. And again, a lot of this has to do with the algorithm here on YouTube as well. I personally am horrified as to some of the rhetoric that I've seen, even coming from, as you guys know, I live in California. It is known for its liberal stance on a lot of issues, but I am a politically right down the middle person. So I see both sides. And but I had some very horrific stuff come my way from some of my friends who are lifelong artists and are lifelong, very peaceful people writing some very incendiary stuff, which I'm going to discuss here with our guest and what really happened with the Trump rally yesterday and the security concerns. If you are a channel member or a Patreon supporter or subscriber, please note that today we have our Collier's AV Club, which is our monthly watch party. We're going to be watching season 2 of The Worst Roommate Ever from Netflix. That is tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern time. And we will be watching the episode that talks about the worst roommate ever. My BFF tried to kill me. So that is what you guys have voted on, is like, hey, this is the episode we want to see. So big shout out to Court McNeil who picked that one out for us. All right. So as I said, my guest today is former Detroit Chief of Police, James E. Craig, and he has been kind enough to join us with his thoughts on the current situation surrounding the Trump assassination attempt yesterday, July 13th, in Butler, Pennsylvania. Welcome to the program, James E. Craig.
Hey,
buddy.
Great to be here, Collier. Thanks.
Thank you so much for coming on the program and joining me. I greatly appreciate it, man.
Not a problem. I got to tell you, I had some technical issues initially, but I was able to navigate through, so I'm here.
Well, I'm grateful that you were able to do that, and I appreciate you again joining us. It's wonderful to have you. Man, there's so much with your CV that we could talk about. But I want to talk about the moment. We're sort of a prisoner of the moment with this current situation that happened yesterday that unfolded, that I, like everyone else, I'm sure, was stunned at what happened. I have friends that are former Secret Service. They're working the detail in Milwaukee right now.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on what went down yesterday?
Well, I got a robust for your viewers and listeners. 44 years in law enforcement. I started in Detroit, moved over to Los Angeles after I was laid off. And during that time, I had an opportunity to provide executive protection as a lieutenant to the police chief, the mayor, and the city attorney. So I'm very familiar with executive protection. Then, of course, later on, becoming the chief of 3 cities, both in, I started out in Portland, Maine as the chief of police, and then Cincinnati, Ohio, and then back home here to Detroit. So I've always had an opportunity to manage executive protection, but not just that. I had executive protection. And then, as you pointed out, I ran for governor here in the state of Michigan. I understand the threats. In fact, when I announced running as the gubernatorial candidate, GOP, protesters came out. They were very violent, tried to attack me. And unfortunately, I didn't have the kind of state support that I thought I would receive. So I get it. And during my time as chief of police in Detroit and other cities, I had threats. So it's horrible. And certainly, as it's been pointed out in national news, President Trump has probably been one of the most threatened public officials as of late. That's what they're saying. And I can believe that. But what happened, of course, as many of your viewers and what should not have happened. It's okay to have a different view.
Yeah, of course.
That's okay. Point out that, growing up in Detroit, African-American, and a Republican, back then I caught a lot of negative rhetoric because of that.
Yeah.
But see, I grew up a Democrat. I was a conservative Democrat, like many African Americans in Detroit, conservative Democrats, JFK Democrats, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
So then I moved in your part of the world, probably the most leftist place in the world. Am I right? I just got to keep it real. That was probably the reason for my transition. The great Maxine Waters. You remember Rodney King? So I was a police sergeant in Los Angeles when Rodney King happened. And I was also the president of the Black Police Officers Association. So I met with Maxine.
Yeah.
And Maxine said some very vile things to me. I said, whoa, wait a minute. She couldn't understand how a Black man could be part of a racist organization like the LAPD. I rejected that because a lot of my colleagues, white, Hispanic, Black, Asian, we worked in communities of color, and it wasn't about race. And these officers all put their lives on the line to support the people in the communities. It had nothing to do with race. So when she came out and confronted me and my board about how we as Black police officers could support this racist police department, it was offensive. It was that vile rhetoric, the same vile rhetoric, ironically, I think has played a role in this issue involving Trump's assassination attempt. Same stuff. And it's got to stop. It just absolutely has to stop. I want to kind of give you that background, Kelly.
No, I appreciate that.
I think it's important because I'm not unfamiliar. After 44 years of dealing with, large scale events where we had to protect dignitaries, whether they were political LA is the entertainment capital of the world. But even LA is very different now. Very different, as you may know.
It's interesting you said that. I was just in Chicago. Like, I flew back yesterday morning. Wait, hold on. Yeah, yesterday morning. And I I was there, and I was working for a couple clients, and somebody messaged me and said, "Hey, you gotta be really careful there, like really careful with crime, etc." And I was like, look,
out of control in Chicago.
And I was thinking about this earlier today. I thought about it when it happened. And it's interesting. You watch the intro to the show. You know a little bit about my background, and my father, who was incarcerated for the murder of my mother,
right,
always says to me these things. And obviously, when you're in prison, you got to have your head on a tether. And I was telling the person that I was with in Chicago, because she brought it up, and she employed me to come shoot all this content for them, and she said, and I said, yeah, you got to keep your head on a swivel always. My father always said situational awareness. In prison you have to have that, right? But it was right before we were leaving. I was in my second to last location. I'm outside on the street filming with my drone, and these two young men come up to me, and they are dressed as they are Hasidic Jews. And I can't believe this conversation. This is so far off from what I normally talk about, but it's the truth. And I could tell that they were not. I live in Los Angeles. There is a large Hasidic Jew population.
Oh, very large. I remember vividly.
Yes. And I knew, I was like, yeah, you don't fit that stereotype. And they came out to me very aggressively and said, excuse me, are you Jewish? And I'm not Jewish. I have a Jewish last name, but I'm adopted. I'm not Jewish. My parents who adopted me were Catholic. But I responded no. And then they walked away. But I thought to myself in the situation, like, they were approaching me very aggressively. Of course, I'm a big guy. I'm almost 6'2", 215. I'm a big dude. But, I'm not looking to get into any trouble. But I thought to myself, I think I was just about ready to get into an altercation with them, because I think they're looking for people, and very aggressive. And you see, and the reason why I'm telling this story is, and I've never discussed, the rapid rise of anti-Semitism in this country. Again, I stay away from political things, but now it seems very apropos to talk about this. But the escalation of rhetoric and the divisiveness, and, let's keep it real. Donald Trump has been involved in some of that as well. But the escalation of some of this stuff has gotten to a point where yesterday is the canary in the coal mine, right?
Well, but I got to interject this, and I'm not gonna, because I am on the right.
Sure.
I'm not gonna say on the right that they haven't said things that kind of escalate. But recently there's been a lot of conversation when comments are made, and I've had the opportunity to meet President Trump personally a number of times, from my time when I was running for governor, and then later as U.S. Senate. My point is this: when people make statements about, oh, well, he's like Hitler.
Yeah, that's
insane. That rhetoric, that politically violent, or he's going to destroy the democracy. Look, I get politics, but if you're going to say things that are going to be inflammatory and create the type of violence what we saw yesterday, it's wrong. Look, I've been in my business for 44 years. I know people will gaslight the American people and say things that are going to get people stoked up, especially if you're dealing with that. I know that this investigation is still very early. We don't know if this individual is suffering from mental illness, possibly. Don't know it. And I don't even want to speculate, but sure, it's that rhetoric that gets people all torqued up to do what? And, I wouldn't want anything to happen to President Biden. And, it's one thing that I never do. Look, I'm no medical doctor. I know that President Biden is suffering from some form of cognitive issues. Okay,
sure. My mother. I think we all are coming to that conclusion.
Yeah, well,
unfortunately.
Exactly. And it's unfortunate. And so I would never, ever demean or say anything reckless regarding, because my mom, who was probably the smartest person I knew, she died from dementia. And it was sad to see the decline. And so when I see him, I feel bad for him because the people that are closest to him, they know. And it's almost like it's elder abuse. Are you kidding me? It's just not right. And I'm not saying that in a negative way against him. It's just out of concern. And I was happy to hear that he reached out to Trump. They had a brief conversation. I'm also appreciative that he came out and denounced this politically violent rhetoric. I'm also happy that the DNC made the right decision to remove all that stuff because it fuels violence, whether it's on the left or the right. And I'm a cop. I know this.
I've been preaching this for.
I've been threatened. I get it. You know,
I've worked in Hollywood for over a decade, and when Trump was elected president, well, before he was elected president, I told all my friends, like, he's going to get elected president if things don't change. And I was a registered Democrat at that time. And I'm a very liberal person in a lot of ways, but I'm also very pragmatic. I don't like stupidity on either side. But I said to my friends, I said, this is something that you have to realize, because we live on the West Coast, New York, we're on the coast. We don't see. I'm from Ohio. I am from.
What part of Ohio are you from?
I'm from Mansfield, which
How far is that from Cincinnati?
So it's halfway between Cleveland and Columbus. Because I heard you mention the 513. So I was like, hey, I was like, okay. But it's 419, and most of the people that I know are Trump voters. I mean, ironically, where I come from is a very Democratic area, but I would say most of the people that I know were going to be voting for Trump or Trump voters. Right. And I told my friends, I was like, look, I said, look, this is a reality that you have to understand, that there's a disconnect in this country that is occurring, that people are disenfranchised with the political system. Yes. They don't feel like their voices are getting heard, and the rhetoric keeps going up and up and up and up, right? And they're upset, they're pissed, and we just see the same thing here with Democrats. And at the time, and my friends, Trump is elected, and I can remember, because I was working on a project that was very important to me. It was a film about my life. It was called Murder in Mansfield, and I remember we got into the prison. And I called my producers. I got that call on the day that Trump was, the day after the election. And I called my producer and my director, who are both very, very liberal, like super left wing. And I said, I was so excited that we got in. They go, like, okay. I was like, guys, snap out of it. Like, I've been telling you this is going to happen. And then and again, I'm not defending Trump. I don't personally care for Trump, but I've never cared for Trump. And also, I don't need to like my leaders. I need them to be good. I need them to lead the country. I can think they're an asshole, and I'm fine with that. They don't need to be my best friend.
Long as the policies support the American people, and that's what's important.
Killer Mike said it best. He said, pick your policy, not your person.
Bingo. And I'm going to tell you something, as an African-American who's a Republican, I always preface when I start talking about issues, not R or D. Because again, I was a longtime Democrat. I talk about issues. Yeah. Whether it's open borders, whether it's fentanyl poisoning, not overdose, poisoning, whether it's the cartels who need to be treated like terrorists coming into our country, delivering that poison. And it's not in dispute that we were energy independent. This is not political. I deal with, because people fact check me all the time. So when I put something out there,
facts over feelings,
and I'm going to tell you feelings. Exactly. And I'm going to tell you something. Black folks are fed up. It's something that President Biden said when he was running in the last cycle to Charlemagne the God, who's a very prominent Black radio personality.
I knew him, yes.
And he said, hey, Biden in an angry voice said, hey, man, if you don't vote for me, you're not black. How dare you?
Yeah.
How dare you? But see, I'm not saying that's the sentiment of all Democrats.
Sure.
Or
Of
people,
course not.
but guess what? There's a belief. I grew up in Detroit. Detroit has always been Democrat. They've not had a Republican mayor in Detroit since 1954, 55. I was born in 56. So not that that matters, but what I'm saying is I get it. I was raised a Democrat. But to assume because I'm black and because I live in a black city, how dare you say you're a Republican? Now that's shameful. I get to choose what I want to be. And by the way, I spent 30 years of my life serving the communities of LA, working with Democrat leaders. Okay? It didn't.
And your
matter.
father also bravely served this country.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. Thank you for his service. Yeah. Absolutely.
Right. And my dad is still a Democrat. But I always remind him, he's 92. We get in our little spirited debates. And I said, Dad, you're conservative. Most African Americans who were church going, they're conservative.
Yeah.
And so, but when you put conservative and Republican in the bucket of that's racist, or because you're black, you must be an Uncle Tom. I resent that. I served the cities I've worked in for 44 years. And most of the time I worked in vulnerable communities, communities of color, and my political ideology had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
When I was the Detroit police chief, Detroit's a Democrat city. By the way, as I served as chief of police, I was the deputy mayor of Detroit, number 2 in charge.
Wow.
So some felt, oh, we're betrayed. He didn't tell us he was a Republican. Well, clue number 1, if I'm on the NRA magazine twice and I'm appearing on National Fox as a law enforcement pundit, and I'm tearing up these woke mayors in some of these far left cities, including the one you live in, hey, what am I? It's common sense. But anyway, I said a lot, but what I am first, I'm a U.S. citizen. I'm American.
Yeah.
I love this country. I love the cities I work in. I love the people. And it has nothing to do with partisan politics at all.
You know, and the thing is, I'm not looking over at the comments because I'm sure. I mean, I have many people who are very, who are on both sides of the political aisle that watch my channel, that listen to my content. I don't, as I said, I don't dive into these issues often, but I think after what happened yesterday, I feel very strongly about we need to start talking about this shit.
Absolutely.
To me, it's and when I'm getting messages from people saying, "Well, too bad they missed." I'm like, are you?
That's the kind of.
Are you out of your mind?
That's the kind of BS that helps fuel it. Look, are we? You know what I was most proud of, and you'll relate to this. You know, when we were attacked 9/11,
yeah,
this country stood together. Ironically, we had a Republican president, whether you like Bush or not. When he stood up with that leather jacket on, he was a leader. He made me, as a young cop, feel that we were safe. And so that mattered to me. And I think it mattered to most Americans.
And he was an unpopular president that was elected off a highly contested election.
Yes.
Hanging Chad election,
right?
And I think about that a lot. He galvanized the country, including Rudy Giuliani, who people do not like. He's become very unpopular. And granted, he's probably not made some of the best choices, but still, he was America's mayor at that time.
He was America's mayor, and let's be candid. And again, I said this earlier in your segment. Let's talk about facts.
Facts.
New York was one of the safest big cities in America. And I know in 2020, when I was chief of police in Detroit, Michigan, a city that most people thought were going to burn up, there were going to be riots. Guess what? LA, for starters, Chicago, Seattle, which was a horror show. All of those places, rioting, looting. But guess what? I'm going to talk like Biden now. Guess what? Not in Detroit. Not in Detroit. It didn't happen for one reason. One, this chief of police wasn't going to put up with that.
Yeah.
And it's a horror show when I saw what happened around the country on some of our university campuses. Look, if you want to protest, I support you, peaceful. But when you start defacing monuments, when you start committing crimes, I don't have any patience for that.
When you start intimidating people,
or listeners who think that I'm over the top, I'm unapologetic. If I had to do a do-over, Detroit didn't burn. And I think most Americans, and again, Detroit's 82, 83% Black, contrary to what they put out in some of the mainstream media. Black folks support the police. They want the police, constitutional policing.
I had a girlfriend for years that grew up on 9 Mile in Gresham.
Okay.
And she and her dad would tell stories, and they like police.
They like police.
They like police.
And the police like the community. Now, and you get a bad cop. I would deal with the bad cop.
Sure.
Make him public.
Of course.
But the vast majority of them come out here every day. Detroit can be violent. Sadly, I had to bury too many officers. I did.
Yeah.
But that said, this community, and when I worked in South Central LA, which you're very familiar.
Yeah, for sure.
Guess what? I had a wonderful relationship. My station that I was the command officer over was on Martin Luther King, not far off from Crenshaw. I know you know where it's at. USC is in that area. Crenshaw. I had great relationships with the community. And my cops had good relationships with the community.
Yep. I used to do, during the pandemic, 2021, 2022, I used to do volunteer work for a local nonprofit in the city of Linwood.
Right.
Which is Compton adjacent. What is it? You know what I mean? And I just remember the interactions with law enforcement being very popular and positive at these events. Nobody was intimidated. These were all kids from a minority community, and these were people that wanted to feel safe. They wanted to feel okay to go and do what they wanted to do. They were starting up. I was working on this community garden project there, which the people they were afraid of were the corporations, were the people coming in and take their land, were the people that were coming in to kick them out of developments. You know what I mean? And those are. I mean, I don't want to get into all those political issues, but there's a lot of times that we forget. Did I lose you, or did you freeze?
No.
Okay. I was like, did you freeze?
I'm still here. What I'm doing, and
I know you have something at 7, so I
got something at 7.
Yeah.
So there's people are communicating something.
Of course,
That's why I said I knew I was going to be running up on
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah.
I just didn't know if it froze. I was like, oh no.
No, I'm here. No,
but it's interesting to see what some people think is very laissez-faire. I had a friend of mine that went back east a couple of weeks ago, and they're still there, and they messaged me and they said, it's my friends, my very liberal friends are finally experiencing anti-Semitism, and it's very horrible. They're afraid, they're wearing black or something. I can't remember what the story was. It was around 4th of July. And I just pray that Los Angeles remains a sanctuary city and they're able to this and that. And I'm thinking to myself, did you not go down to UCLA? Did you not see what was going on?
Let me tell
Did
you
you not see
something.
what's going on at USC when when Jewish students are being threatened, and they're being threatened for their religious beliefs? That's what I don't understand.
I'm appalled. And that's why I brought up 9/11. As a country, we were together. Now, but see, we have actors that embed themselves in what is peaceful protesting. They embed themselves, and they're the ones that stoke the violence. See, I understood the tactic when I looked at all these other cities, including LA in 2020. These people are well funded.
Sure.
This is not conspiracy theory. This is fact. And they go into these cities, they go on these campuses, and nobody seems to be really interested in what's the underlying strategy. I know it. I know it. They don't like me because I speak out on it. And it's unfortunate. And this thing that happened, the anti-Semitism, the college campuses, that's what's happening today. Tomorrow will be something else. It was George Floyd in 2020. And before that, I saw the beginnings. I was a chief in Cincinnati at the time. You remember all the Occupy Wall Street, Cincinnati, LA? Yep. That was the beginning of what we see today. Look, I'm all down for peaceful protests.
Sure.
You want to protest, you follow the law, I'm going to protect you. But you attack my police officers, you engage in vandalism, you loot and start fires, then I'm going to deal with you in a very certain way.
Yeah.
And they know that about me. That's why they don't like me. No excuses. And I'll give you time to go away. But if you want to push that button, I'm going to handle you. Because my obligation, and I'm sworn in duty to protect the people that live in any city I work, unapologetically. And to your listeners, I don't care if they're left, right, or right in the middle, I think all of them would understand one thing. I want to be safe. They want to be safe. That's why I talk, Oh, I like that. He said, I want to see this guest anytime.
Yeah, right. We got some pot. You got some people.
Like,
I mean, look, I understand, guys. This is normally, it's diverted and sort of off the rails of what I normally discuss. But again, these issues are very important to me. I pay attention to them offline off the YouTube, which I don't talk about. But now I just can't not talk about this anymore. Because after what I saw yesterday, again, I am not a fan of Donald Trump, which is so ironic. But when I see this stuff, is how can anyone poke? I have videos people sending me, and I'm doing the thumbs down on my Instagram message. I'm like, what is wrong with you? What makes you think that this is good for anyone?
It's not good.
It's not good for anyone.
And I just hope
matter.
You know what I really hope, Khalil, that if from this, the rhetoric can calm down.
Sure.
Because we have people that are not in their right mind. And all it takes is, let's face it, Biden, 5 days before this incident, he made a statement. There's a bullseye on Trump.
I don't remember that, but
what does that mean? But it's that kind of and I give Biden credit. He's backed off, and they really wanted to tone all this stuff down to the point where negative ads were removed, and that's good stuff. This may be a beginning of bringing folks together. We need to do that, and so I'm hoping that through this tragic situation, that something wonderful comes back, and we can get back to the America that's like this. Yeah. Somebody just said, lived in the area when you were Chief Bravo. Love Detroit. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Kai, Gigi, thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Look at that. Yes, it's good. It's very good that people are responding as well. Because again, this is an important conversation.
Well, I hope you have me on again.
I will for sure. I want to go to something that I, of course, was digging through. Let me see if I can find it here. There was an article in The Independent on July 26th, 2018.
Okay.
Says Donald Trump assassination market appears on blockchain platform Ogre. Jeff Bezos, Warren Buffett, and other high-profile figures have also been caught up in the trend. This is discussing, this, not deep state, but dark web, rather, sort of market that people are trying to put up bounties on people, right? You don't think this incident that happened is something like that, right?
It's funny you ask me that stuff, and I tell you, I guess because I've been a cop, I deal with facts.
Mm-hmm.
I stay away from conspiracy theories and speculations because people, when I used to speak on issues, they knew I was going to give it to them straight. I do have my own thoughts. I guess I do have a lot of questions about this situation. And I'll tell you what comes to mind as a cop. How did this 20-year-old get within 150 feet with a rifle, climb up on a 2-story building? How does that? And then secondly, this is the cop in me. Where was air support? I mean, I've been involved in a lot of high profile issues where we would put different tactics and strategies in place. So why wasn't there a helicopter up? Why wasn't there a drone up?
There were supposedly drones at other rallies. There was the Wildwood rally where there was a drone.
Let me just say this. I was at Trump's rally in Detroit 3 weeks ago now, and it was at a African-American church in not the best neighborhood. There was an abundance of Detroit police, Michigan State Police, as well as Secret Service and FBI at this event. I'm a gun-carrying American citizen. I have a CPL and a former chief of Detroit. I could not bring my gun into that venue and did not bring my gun into that venue. So the question, it begs the question, how, why? And I hope that as they peel back the layers of this situation, and I'm going to tell you what else I'm a little troubled by. Where was the Secretary of the Secret Service? You have an incident like this, a former president an attempted assassination, and you don't show up and make statements. They used to have a phrase for me here in Detroit when I was a chief. They called me Hollywood because they said I never met a camera that I didn't like. It wasn't I was trying to be on television. That's what they used to say. And they called me Hollywood. That was my code name here in Detroit because I was in Hollywood. But my point is, I felt I had a duty to report as soon as I knew facts to the people. And it's shameful when I see that the secretary, she's not made a statement. And don't let me start on Marocas. That's the other problem. I have a real issue with that. The American people need to know what you know. So what do you know, U.S. government? And then, I shouldn't say it, but I'm going to say it. So you put somebody with no law enforcement experience who was the CEO of Nestle or some food company.
Yeah.
To run the Secret Service. Are you kidding me?
I saw that. Or it's like PepsiCo or something.
Elon
Musk pointed that out. Elon Musk has, by the way, turned into this villain of the...
It's absolutely insanity. I get that you may have run successfully a company
Sure.
This is a different world. This is a different world. That would be like saying to me, well, I did say this to Martha Ford when the Lions were a poor performing NFL football team. I went to her and I said, she said, "Oh, Chief, I love you. I love the job you're doing. I love your leadership." I said, "Well, if you put me over the Detroit Lions, I would turn the team around." She looked at me and she had some other Lion and Ford executives with her. And they said, "This man is crazy." No, I'm not. It's about leadership. And the thing I knew about the Lions at the time, all these young men were professionals. And the problem was simple. It was real simple for me. The morale was at the bottom and they were underperforming. And I said, if you put me in charge, I'll turn it around. I only say that story to say, you got this person in there who should have been in front of a camera within 1 hour of this incident. That's what I did as chief of police. But, I hate to cut off. These folks are calling me for my next hit. And I just want to say, I want to come back to your show. I really do. I enjoyed it. I'm a big fan of Steve.
Yeah.
And he's my guy. And so whenever you want me to come back on, and I just hate, and to your viewers, I appreciate the kind remarks. And to those who may have said a little negative remark, I love you too. But thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you so much. My guest today is former Detroit Chief of Police, James
Craig.
E. Craig.
Can we also pay homage to not only Detroit, but my friends in Cincinnati, Ohio, where I was chief, and Portland, Maine.
Yep.
And not to forget about my 30 years in your great city, Los Angeles.
Well, we appreciate your service. We appreciate your father's service to our country. James, thank you so much for doing the program. I'll bring you back. We'll have a longer discussion.
Absolutely.
And thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Look forward to it, my friend.
We'll see you. Have a great day.
Okay, you too now. Bye.
Thank you so much to my guest, James E. Craig, who former Detroit Chief of Police. Look, guys, I know this is a little bit of a veering off of what I normally cover. Again, as I said at the top of the program, given yesterday's events, I think it is important to talk about these issues because this is becoming a real problem. And we saw it unfold because, as I've said again, violence doesn't do any of us any favors. It most certainly should not swing or intimidate people in an election. And no matter what you think of the candidates, it doesn't really matter. I want to play this video. This is, and I had hoped that James could have been on for this, but I want to play this video here. This is the guy who had seen the shooter scale the building and alerted police.
The guy crawling, bear crawling up the roof of the building beside us, 50 feet away from us. So we're standing there, and we're pointing at the guy crawling up the roof.
And he had a gun, right?
He had a rifle. We could clearly see him with a rifle. Absolutely. We're pointing at him. The police are down there running around on the ground. We're like, "Hey, man, there's a guy on the roof with a rifle." And the police were like, "Huh, what?" Like they didn't know what was going on. We're like, "Hey, right here on the roof. We can see him from right here. We see him. He's crawling." And next thing you know, I'm thinking to myself, why is Trump still speaking? Why have they not pulled him off the stage? I'm standing there pointing at him for, 2 or 3 minutes. Secret Service is looking at us from the top of the barn. I'm pointing at that roof, just standing there like this. And next thing you know, 5 shots ring out.
So that is the eyewitness account. This guy interviewed with the BBC. I was trying to find it earlier when Jeff was on here. James, Jesus, wow, whoa! I need to get some sleep. The crush on the hat cracks me up. Flo says that was a great interview. My family is made of many colors. We are all created by the same God. If we, the people, stand together, we can have the America I grew up in. I would concur with that. I hope we've got some time left because this is an hour show, but or however long I do it. But I hope that you guys found this my guest interesting. If you I'm sure I'll have him back. He is not afraid of the camera. I love that. There's a lot of people so I understand that this content sort of veers from what I usually talk about, and discuss, but again, I've been very concerned about this for a very long time, and I refrain from talking about it in a public forum, but the rhetoric that I've seen around this election, around both of these candidates, is very concerning to me and other people. And the use of intimidation and the rise of anti-Semitism in this country has been something that's been of utmost concern to me for a very long time. My peers and I talk about it consistently. I have two friends who just got married who are Jewish, and we were even discussing at their wedding, just like, should we be worried? Should we be, and I can't believe that we're actually having conversations on what is the best day of someone's life, that we're having conversations around, should we structure things that are, should we try to rethink about how we're planning this wedding or what's going on? And, do we want the chuppah to be seen from the street? It was a big deal. And I don't like that. And I think that we need to cool out the rhetoric. I understand that, we can all agree to disagree. And I just, as I've said, also, I don't particularly care for either candidate that is running for office, but I don't want to see anyone get hurt or injured or any of those things. So it is a state in our nation because, well, thank you so much, Richard Donaldson. I started watching you because you're so impartial, regardless of political views. I very much am. I'm very middle of the road. I don't like violence. I don't like intimidation. I don't like fear tactics or fear mongering. I don't like mass media manipulation of populations. It's one of the reasons why I started doing this show and talking about these things. I think they're very important, and I will continue to talk about this if you guys are down with it. I don't like conspiracy theories either. And I think that, it's like I discussed last week with the Alec Baldwin trial, which of course Alec Baldwin's conviction was, or not conviction, rather, his manslaughter charge was dismissed with prejudice on Friday. I was in Chicago. I didn't even get to see any of this, and I appreciate you guys who tuned in, and Karen Fan, who took over the live stream for me in my absence. It was amazing. You guys, I don't like those things either, but I do like your hair. Thank you so much. Yes, my hair is having a day today. But I feel very passionate about all of these things, and they're of utmost concern to me. But again, Alec Baldwin's charges dismissed and case dismissed with prejudice. I'm going to cover that in a separate video, probably tomorrow. We'll be back to talk about this type of stuff. Hopefully nothing crazy will happen tomorrow at the Republican National Convention. It was interesting when I watched Trump get up and pump his fist. I was discussing with someone yesterday about how, and again, I know people do not care for either candidate in ways, but him standing up, and I said to my friend, I said, I see the rage in his eyes, and just the anger. It reminds me of my father when I was a kid, knowing that he was going to try to kill me, and how angry and how just infuriated that made me. Like, oh, now you've escalated this, and him standing up and just be like, fight. Like, I get it. I was with him. It really stirred up a lot of emotion because it brought me back to that point when I was a child of confronting my father for murdering my mother, and just thought about, like, you're going to try to take my life too, or you tried to take my life and you took the life of my mother. Okay, it's game on. It's game on, dude. And I think that's I could really sense that with the former president, again, who I'm not a particular fan of, but I'm not a fan of people taking the law in their own hands, and I'm not a fan of people trying to disrupt our democracy. in every way. But yeah, I was yesterday was just was a stain on Assassination. Speaking of Nation, Mover Nation, thank you so much for joining me today. If you are a YouTube channel member or you are a Patreon supporter, today we have in 1 hour and 8 minutes Collier's AV Club, which is a new segment. If you guys have been watching the program for a while, or you've supported me here on YouTube, you know that I've been doing this for probably, I think this is our 4th month. Court McNeil will tell me in the comments where we're on. Court McNeil, associate producer of the show. She's on it. She prepares all the notes and everything for today. Which I didn't get to a lot of these notes, which means it's going to have to be another video when I discuss this whole situation. It reminded me of Gabby Giffords. It reminded me of Steve Scalise, who called for the stop of obviously this incendiary rhetoric that has been going on surrounding this election and the candidates today, rightfully so. He also had an attempt on his life, and as Gabby Giffords was she was shot and had survived, which is a miracle in and of itself when that happened. That was horrific as well. I think that seems to end in yelling. Yeah, I'm not going to yell. I do like Piers Morgan. He gets kind of calm. I don't understand why Piers Morgan, when I watch his uncensored show, he doesn't mute his guests, because that would be very easy for them to mute, for the person in the control room to mute it. I like that he just lets them just keep yelling over each other. It is annoying, but it's like, I'm not going to mute you. You can just do whatever. It's why we don't. It's why, for the most part, we don't delete. I do not delete. I personally do not delete any comments on the channel. Sometimes our mods are working very diligently in conversations like this, conversations like the Karen Reed trial. Our mods were very much on it. Thank you so much to all my channel moderators who've come out. Court McNeil, Karen Fan, Cat Loves Catskills, Gen X to the 7th power. Got it right. Gen X Granny, Gen X to the 7th power. And Sherry Falls, who I need to make a moderator too as well. But thank you all so much. They do delete certain comments in the chat because we do get dinged by the AI if you say things that are can be deemed as incendiary. It has dinged us. Big shout out to Melanie Little, attorney Melanie Little, whose channel's probably 63,000 now subs, who I met during the Karen Reed trial, pointed out to me like, hey, you got to watch what they write in the chat when you're doing lives. So we just try to do that. I don't like to censor people at all. I know this is a platform that sometimes censors people. I don't like to censor people, but sometimes we have to do it just for the survival of this show and this channel. But I normally don't delete comments. I like to just let you guys have your arguments and in the comments that will follow once this video is published. I'm happy to do that. Please, as you know, there are rules. Don't insult, no racist comments, no hate, no bigotry, all of those things. And as always, like I like to say, I am not a lawyer. I am not a psychologist. I do not work in law enforcement. I'm just a guy who's been through a lot of shit. And I'm also a filmmaker. And because I'm a filmmaker and I love making films and I love documentaries, we have, as the new installment, Collier's AV Club. This is our 4th or 5th month. Court McNeil, tell me if I'm wrong. 4th or 5th month here doing Collier's AV Club for YouTube channel members and Patreon supporters. So if you're a channel member, what we do is we get together after this tonight at 8 p.m. We are going to get together online and watch season 2 of The Worst Roommate Ever. One episode, which is my BFF Try to Kill Me. Court McNeil put that in the suggestion box. There are a little suggestion box. People drop in and say, hey, you'd like to see it. And we are, so we're going to be watching that. And it will be great fun. Last month we watched the Dancing for the Devil, which is the 7N dance cult. So that was a good one as well. And Marisol will be there as well. She is not happy right now. She's locked downstairs. She was being ornery. She wouldn't stay in her little playpen. And I hear her now making noise. She's probably torn up something. She always does. But yeah, she'll be joining us. She'll have treats. She has her popcorn. Yeah, kind of like that. So I'm excited. I'll remove that. Mover Nation, it has been an exhausting day. exhausting last 24 hours ish, given what has happened in our country. And I want to reiterate this again. Please, 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 please. We all have the luxury of coming onto these forums and then coming onto these forums and sharing our opinions, sharing our thoughts, discussing these types of things. And we get to walk away. As I like to say, during the trials we were watching, during the case analysis, whether it be Karen Reed, whether it be Alec Baldwin, and whether it be Rebecca Grossman, Michelle Troconis, et cetera, and whether it will be the other ones that are coming up, like Brian Koberger. We all have the luxury of walking away. And we have to remember that yesterday, in particular, not only was there the assassination attempt of former President Donald Trump, but more importantly, and I want to correct that Trump did come out with a statement, and I should put this actually on the thing because somebody incorrectly said that he did not make a statement. His statement was immediate at 8:42 p.m. yesterday. I want to thank. Hold on, I'll just go ahead and present this. Hang on. Because I do like to keep things fair and accurate here. His statement had come out yesterday, and it said, I want to thank the Secret Service and all of law enforcement for their rapid response to the shooting that just took place in Butler, Pennsylvania. Most importantly, I want to extend my condolences to the family of another person who was, of the person who at the rally who was killed, and also to the family of another person that was badly injured. It is incredible that such an act can take place in our country. Nothing is known at this time about the shooter who is now dead. I was shot with a bullet that pierced the upper part of my right ear. I knew immediately that something was wrong, and that I heard a whizzing sound, shots, and immediately felt the bullet ripping through the skin. Much bleeding took place, which is such a Trump turn of phrase. Much bleeding took place. This guy, I swear. Much bleeding took place, so I realized then what was happening. God bless America. He issued that statement at I was on. This all happened around 6 p.m. So a few hours later, he did make a statement, but people had incorrectly said that he did not issue a statement and care about the people who were injured, and he did, in fact, issue a statement pretty quickly after getting checked out by doctors. I don't know how people thought he was going to instantaneously issue that. He probably was still trying to figure out what went wrong, what happened. As you can hear in the video too, he's talking about his needs, his shoes, and this, that, and the other. Very shocking. Amazing photographs, by the way, that came out in the I believe New York Times, with these New York Times photographer with the actual bullet whizzing past his head. It's insane to me. Statement from President Joe Biden, our current president. I have been briefed on the shooting at Donald Trump's rally in Pennsylvania. I am grateful to hear that he is safe and doing well. I'm praying for him and his family and for all those who were at the rally as we await further information. Jill and I are grateful to the Secret Service for getting him to safety. There's no place for this kind of violence in America. We must unite as one nation to condemn it. And as you know, the Biden campaign suspended their advertising in the wake of this event. And the casualty of the person whose life was taken in this horrific act, that man is identified as Corey Comparatore, a firefighter, churchgoer, and proud, quote, girl dad to 2 daughters. He was attending the rally with his family when the shots were fired. His instinct as a responder and a father, boy, I'm going to cry here, was to immediately dive on top of his family, keeping them safe at the expense of his own safety and ultimately his life. I am sure there is a GoFundMe that will be out for him. Paul Hayden, who lived across the street from the Comparatore, said they often rode dirt bikes together and went fishing on weekends. Comparatore flew a Trump flag in his lawn during the last presidential election. Hayden shared his support for Biden, but that never impacted their friendship. Quote, I know he was a Trump guy and he knew I was a Biden guy, but we never let that come between us. He was a very good person. Our prayers are also with the 2 gravely injured men who are still in the hospital and whose names who have not yet been released. So, sorry, sometimes that stuff affects me, as it should. as it should. On that note, Mover Nation, we get through another one. We are, we might have separate theories, philosophies, opinions, etc. But this is a place where we can all share those in a civilized way, not attack each other. And for that, I'm so grateful for all of you who join me on these lives and who support my content. And I greatly appreciate it. Big shout out to our mods who have done just an amazing job as well. And I thank you all very much. Again, River Nation, remember to care about and love one another. Marisol weighs in right now. And I hope to see many of you on our AV Club tonight in about an hour. But on that note, River Nation, here's the outro. Mover Nation, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much to all my channel members and Patreon supporters. And for more exclusive content, behind the scenes videos, monthly VIP meet and greets, and watch parties, please consider supporting me on Patreon or by becoming a YouTube channel member. If you like this video, check out this one right here or this one right here. And don't forget to like and subscribe because it helps with the algorithm. On that note, I'm Collier Landry. I'll see you on the next one. Good girl, Marisol. Good girl.